Man, Tim, I am so excited about this episode, man. We're actually going to talk about a pie. I brought us a pie.
What kind of pie is that?
It's a raspberry pie.
That's not a raspberry pie.
Well, I mean, it's got some whipped cream and stuff on top, but it definitely
This
is a raspberry.
is the raspberry pie we're supposed to be talking about.
Oh, okay. We can do that one instead.
Okay.
We'll save this for later.
Yes.
So, Tim, since my pie wasn't good enough for you, why are we actually here then?
We're here to actually talk about the Raspberry Pi Model B.
Oh, so the electronic device. Well,
Yeah.
that kind of makes sense since this is a tech bucket list. We should probably talk about technical stuff.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay. So I got questions about the Raspberry Pi and like, for instance, who invented it and what was it made for to begin with?
Well, in the first public view of what was being made was in 2011. Eben Upton was one of the people who's most commonly associated with it because he's been kind of its evangelist and he became like a founding father of the movement. And started up a nonprofit using, at the time, Broadcom technology. Still uses Broadcom chips, but it's not all Broadcom. And they used that because he was familiar with it, and he reached out to some of the news groups out there that were running alternate ports of Unix, Linux, things like that, to try to work out a port for some new silicon he was working on.
Cool. So who is it still owned by Broadcom?
No, they've released the licensing and everything so that is a completely patent-free product. So that means that the software and hardware, while you can charge for the hardware, you can't charge in a way that causes there to be intellectual property rights or patents or royalties or anything like that.
Oh, sweet. So it's, who is it? RaspberryPi.org is the people who own.
Yeah, that's
the
the website for their organization.
Oh, so that's who you can actually get a pie from if you wanted to.
Definitely is a valid source for that. Yeah, they sell them directly on there.
So, have you guys messed with the pie before? That's something we're really interested in. What kind of projects have you done with it? We'd love to hear about those in the comments below.
Definitely.
Also, be sure to if you like what you're seeing, if you want to see more about us, hit that subscribe button and also the notify icon to get updates.
Yeah.
So
we'd appreciate it.
So the Raspberry Pi, there's several parts associated with this thing, right? So let's start off by showing these folks what the Pi is all about.
All right.
All the different pieces.
So we've, of course, got the Pi itself. I'm going to kind of just illustrate some of the key points on it, without showing you every little detail. But we got your USB and Ethernet on one side, right? Then on this other side over here, we've got the HDMI out as well as a composite out. And then we've got the power in, which is in the form of a micro USB slot. And then we've got various connectors on the board itself for like camera modules, higher bandwidth modules, and then as well as our general purpose I/O, our GPIO pins here for like some of the other aspects for use. So it's got quite a bit of connectivity around it, but it's pretty simple to connect and pretty much plug and play.
Oh, that's awesome. And in order to actually for that to do anything, you've got to have a power supply for the Pi.
Power is key.
So wherever you're getting your Pi from, if you're buying it online, if you're buying it at a store, make sure that you get a power supply that works with that Pi. If you speak with a sales associate, if you're going out to a store to buy one, they can definitely help you match that power supply up with that Pi. They usually don't come together unless you're buying an entire kit. But if you're buying it individual pieces, make sure you talk to a sales associate and make sure you get the right parts.
Yeah, you want ample power for all of your needs, so discuss your project with them, and they'll definitely get you appropriately sized power supply for that.
Another important piece is the micro SD card. That micro SD card goes inside the Pi. It's actually where your operating system is installed on. It is basically kind of like the hard drive for like your computer. It's basically the same thing. Not every micro SD card works with your Raspberry Pi though, so it's very important that you get the right SD card for the Raspberry Pi. And here's a list of those in case you don't have that handy. Okay. Also, we have, what's that?
The cases.
The case.
So protecting your investment, this Pi has a lot of exposed pins on the board and whatnot. So protecting that, you want to get a case. These come in a bewildering number of form factors and types. They even include like mock-ups of like
game
entertainment consoles, game
NESs,
controllers, all kinds of things.
Old school Nintendo.
Old school, new school. This one is a relatively simple clamshell design. You put your Pi into the little pinch pins and put some screws in to lock it in. It has some vents for ventilation, lets some airflow through it. It's got cutouts for all of the breakouts of the boards, as well as your I/O cutouts here. So you get good airflow. You got a way to get all of your inputs and outputs out again, and pretty straightforward. I think you said, though, there was one gotcha with this case that you got to consider.
Yeah, the SD card. So right inside here is where your SD card would go, and it's easy to put in, but it's very difficult to actually pull out. So you wanna make sure that if you go to pull it in there, that you might want to very gently use like a pair of needle nose or something like that to pull it out. You don't want to like break the card or anything, so you want to be very careful with that. That's the only gotcha with that particular case. Another thing that you're really absolutely going to need is an SD card reader. You can pick these up for like $14 or whatever. This one I got from Best Buy. It's an Insignia brand generic SD card reader. It has micro and regular SD card and micro SD card capabilities with it. You can just throw it in your backpack or whatever, carry around with you. It's a very handy little piece of equipment.
And it's possible you may have a card reader built into your computer, especially if you have a laptop. It might have a reader. You just want to make sure that it's SDXC compatible.
Yeah, there you go. You might want to have a keyboard and mouse set up. You can use either a wired keyboard that has USB or whatever, but I like to use the wireless things because I really don't like to deal with wires that much. So
the Logitech's nice because you've got the unifying receiver, a single USB port would be tied up for multiple devices.
Yeah,
so it's very convenient.
And the Raspbian software OS, the noobs and all that stuff recognizes the wireless keyboard.
Natively supports it, no extra steps needed.
Yeah.
However, if you just don't have a lot of budget and you've just got a couple keyboards hanging around, as long as you've got a USB mouse and a USB keyboard, for the most part, they're generally supported quite well as well. So those are an option. Yeah. That brings us to the next thing, which is really critical, I would say. How to get video out from your Pi into some way to consume it or use it. The default mechanism is HDMI, as you're seeing him use here. Almost everyone has an HDMI device of some sort to show it. So that's everything from using your TV in your living room, which is an option, to HDMI port on your home monitor on your computer. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're prepared to be able to use it in a way that doesn't affect your ability to use your other computer. So you have to swap cables if you only have the one input. That's why I mentioned a TV. Sometimes it's helpful to plug into another input on your TV so you can just get up enough video to see what you're doing.
Yeah, sometimes it's also maybe your computer doesn't have an HDMI port. It may have a DVI only connector. You can buy
adapters.
An adapter. Thank you.
Yes.
You can buy an adapter to connect this from your computer to your Raspberry Pi, and that works perfectly fine as well. So that in a nutshell is the parts that we need to actually get going with the Raspberry Pi. One thing we didn't cover the network. This particular device has an onboard network, and it's Wi-Fi.
Variety of networks, Wi-Fi and Ethernet.
It actually has Wi-Fi on board, so it connects to your Wi-Fi network. So again, you don't have to play with the additional wires. You can just connect it to your Wi-Fi, so you can get all your updates for your software and all that.
Yeah.
So that right there is the Raspberry Pi and all the necessities to follow along with us in our next videos. So that's what can we do with it?
Man, this is the best part about it. There's so many things that you can actually do with the Pi. Because of its open source nature and because of the way that the community that's formed around the Pi has evolved, there are so many uses that were not even envisioned by, even in his buddies when they first came up with the hardware idea. So we've got everything from general purpose computing, educational computing, learning how computers work and how computer software works, all the way to home automation, which was a big surge in the community that they just didn't envision. They never thought somebody would buy a Pi to run their home security cameras, their automatic lighting, things like that. But people use it for that quite a lot. It's an excellent computer for that purpose. We've also got a variety of other uses, and all the way from things like AI. Believe it or not, people are using AI research, using a Pi as a base, all the way to the most important use for any computer, games.
Definitely
Yes.
games.
There's a lot of games, everything from emulation to homebrew. You can play Tux Racer on this guy. I mean, it's got a ton of different games available.
And
for it.
there's like projects where you can like turn this Raspberry Pi into the old Nintendo NES. You can make controllers, arcade controllers with a Raspberry Pi. The possibilities are endless. You can make a weather station to predict the weather.
Yes.
I mean, it's ridiculous what you can do with these things, and it's a great way, an inexpensive way to explore all these different avenues of technology, which is kind of what we're all about.
Yeah.
So that's why we're choosing to go with the Raspberry Pi for our first series in this channel, because it's really a gateway. You can learn coding, you can learn hardware, you kind of learn it all.
It's kind of a pivotal technology for makers. If you want to make things, this is an excellent way to get into that.
So what have you guys made with the Raspberry Pi? I asked that earlier, but that's really important to us. We'd love to see what you've done. Let's see those in the comments below. Also, if you like what you see, make sure you subscribe and
hit that bell.
Hit that bell to get updated for our future videos. And we'd love to see you next Tuesday.
Yeah, we're dying to see what you're going to make with it. Thanks for being with us today.
So I'm going to grab this pie that we were talking about earlier.
Again with you and the pie.
And I'm going to eat it now. And
all right, I'm looking forward
No,
to
this pie wasn't good enough for you. So
oh, yeah,
for
that's
me. No, you can have some.
Okay. All
right.
Thanks, guys. Have a great.
See you next Tuesday.